from the BBC World Service in association with ABC and All India Radio. This is Stumped.
Hello and welcome to Stumped, your intercontinental hit of news, features and debate from the quirky world of cricket. I'm Alison Mitchell in London, set free after an enforced period of home isolation. I got pinged by the COVID app for being a close contact, so I've done my dutiful 10 days and multiple negative tests. And then the first thing I did when I was free was go for a bike ride. Jim, you'll be glad to know I've been on the driving range as well, been swinging the golf clubs a little bit. But now I'm swapping my cricket hat for my tennis hat because I'm getting ready to go to Wimbledon and report and commentate on the tennis for a week, which I'm really excited about. And I know, Charu, you'll appreciate that as well.
Yeah, Jim Maxwell back in town in Sydney. And Ali, I hope you take your guitar with you to Wimbledon, because they might need a bit of serenading down there, particularly if rain stops play, which is more than likely. I've been away in South Australia and I just got back, and now I'm in a cluster, a lockdown. The whole country's gone mad with, unfortunately, some outbreaks of COVID that's shut down flights to New Zealand and interstate. And so we're back where we were a year ago. Hopefully it sparks up in the next few weeks and we get a cleaner bill of health. But we might talk about some cricket. It's been pretty good, Charu. Did you enjoy that game?
Hey, Jim, good to have you back. And it appears that the COVID confusion continues here too in India. We'll get to that game in a second, Jim. We'll get to that. But, and Alison, for the 949th time, I have got to say, I'd love to have been where you're going, but, you know, maybe in the future. Hello, everybody. This is Charu Sharma for All India Radio. I am still in the middle of my partisan lament as a nation of 1.4 billion people went down to a tiny nation called the land of the long white cloud. And they, of course, took away cricket's biggest prize at this point of time, created a bit of history, but more lament will follow.
It was a cracking final day, wasn't it? We will talk about that. It's good to have you back, Jim, for sure. And also, I mean, it's strange, isn't it, to feel that Australia is having so much disruption at the moment. And here in the UK, actually, it feels as if we're sort of bumbling along in many ways. But one event which certainly went ahead here in England, albeit a bit rain affected, was the Men's World Test Championship final. And after 61 matches, the first ever winners have been crowned.
136 for 2, 3 to win. Shami's on his way. Bowles to Taylor, who flicks that away into the leg side. That'll be it. Over the boundary it goes. And New Zealand are the World Test champions.
Well, there you have it. A team who are so widely respected, who have lost, two major finals in the last 7 years. They beat India by 8 wickets in what was a closely fought match. It went down to the final session on the 6th day. Yes, there was a reserve day and it was needed after 2 days were washed out. But even going into that final day, all results were still possible, win, draw or tie. And Charu and Jim, and just to say simply it was an 8-wicket win for New Zealand does not do justice to the tension that was felt on the final day, particularly for New Zealand fans desperate to see their side get over the line. And the match had been stop-start, more stop than start to begin with the rain. But the cricket we did have was very high quality and bubbled up to an enthralling last day, Charu.
Well, yes, it'll be nice for the producers to try and find what I said before the World Test Championship started. Something about New Zealand being the favourites because they were better prepared. There's no doubt about it. Those 2 test matches probably made a very big difference to their level of preparedness. We can argue endlessly about whether India went in with the right squad or, of course, they let a lot of chances go and were they the lesser team? Well, the result will have to say that. So I'm not going to be too harsh on the Indian team. I just think that they were outplayed. New Zealand had the better bowling attack, and which is why India lost their 20 wickets and could not take 20. So, all praise to New Zealand for being better prepared, for just bowling better lines, I suppose, and making sure that the pressure remained on India. And there was enormous pressure in the final hour or two on the New Zealand players. But, to have Williamson there and Taylor, their 2 biggest and best players, was, I think, a just reward for a nation that has not won the big ones. So I'm really happy for New Zealand, much as and lots of millions of other Indians are probably very disappointed thinking that they were going in as favourites. But I thought New Zealand were better prepared even before the test match, and luckily it did finish, and it was riveting, no doubt about that.
It was certainly riveting watching until the early hours of this morning here in Australia as Williamson and Taylor put together their match-winning partnership. And what I liked about this test match is I've liked so often about test matches in England, forgetting the weather, which can be a nuisance, is that you play on pitches that keep the game interesting. Bowlers are always in the game. Batting requires a certain amount of tenacity and judgment and skill to survive and make runs. And that's why we saw in those circumstances the best batsman in the world, Kane Williamson, going about his craft. I don't think there's any doubt about it. If you look at the 2 innings he played in that match, they were match defining and influencing, in as much as Carl Jamieson, with his extraordinary record so far in Test cricket, stepped up and was the lead bowler, man of the match for New Zealand, who, apart from 1 or 2 blemishes, caught very well, bowled splendidly after a hiccupy start when they'd sent India in, and they really did play some outstanding cricket. And this is a team at its peak, which may not last for very long because quite a few of the players are getting to the point where they'll be retiring. I mean, Watling's gone, Taylor's probably about to. This was a sublime achievement. And that's the great thing about having matches like this. It makes us realise the importance of Test match cricket.
Interestingly, England started playing at a home T20 international against Sri Lanka towards the climax of the World Test Championship final, and fittingly the BBC commentary stayed with the final on the main networks, and I would be interested to see the viewing figures, and I'm sure most England fans stayed watching the climax of the Test match rather than flip to watch their own country play the first of a series of T20 internationals, even though there is, of course, a World Cup at the end of the year, and some of England's star players were back in action, like Joss Morgan and Joss Butler and Owen Morgan leading the team. Test cricket in its primacy, it was an occasion. Let's just hear what both captains had to say afterwards. Winning captain Kane Williamson in a moment, but first, here is India's captain Virat Kohli.
There's effort, there's ups and downs, there's situations changing throughout the course of the series, a chance to rectify the things that you've done wrong in the first game, and then really see who's the better side over a course of a 3-match series or something will be a good measure of how things really are. So we are not too bothered by this result because we understand, as I said, as a test side, what we've done over the last 3-4 years.
I think we saw both teams grab momentum at certain points in time, and then to have the 6th day as backup due to weather and see both teams have a real opportunity of a result meant for a fantastic game to be a part of, and for us, a very proud moment in our history and a proud moment just as a team really to stick to what we do well and come away with the win, which is a really great feeling.
When you get a final day set up like it was, you sort of forget what went on, the days before with the rain and the frustration, because you're rewarded with this tremendous, tense climax. But Charu, hearing Kohli then say, we're not bothered by this result, that's not true, is it? But also, I do want to throw around this idea about, should the final be over the course of 3 test matches instead of 1? I personally like the fact that this is a one-off. It makes it different from a usual test match series. It's a final after all. It's make or break.
Yeah, well, you have to take whatever Kohli said with a little pinch of salt there, because it must be hurting. It's got to be hurting. It was history making, the first ever World Test Championship, and you want to win it. And getting all to the final was big enough, but winning was the big thing, because as is very famously said, nobody remembers second. I'm sure most of us will remember second here. And I'm also disappointed that I think Ravi began this earlier and Virat's following this, and a few other people also there's a little bit of currency here, gaining on the 3-match thing. Why 3-match? Why not the best of 7 or a best of 11? There's a certain importance to and relevance to one match, one opportunity to get at the very highest level. So I'm a little disappointed that India is still going in with this 3-match theory, which wasn't planned by the ICC at all. So why are we pushing in that direction? And the only reason I think that's being pushed now is because India were not prepared enough, and they knew that over 3 matches they'd probably do better. But it's 1 match, 1 title, 1 cricket test championship, and India better get used to that sooner than later.
Would you rather see more matches, Jim, in a final series?
Oh, I suppose ideally, but as has been pointed out today, even on social media, Earl Eddings, the chairman of Cricket Australia, piped up when I put something out there about that, following on Kohli's remarks, and he said, well, you just can't do it with the schedule. And my reaction, of course, is always to say, well, if you got rid of a whole lot of those T20 games, you might be able to have a bit more space to play more Test cricket. But, yeah, I think the schedule is a problem, trying to fit it all in with all the countries that are involved. I'm going one way and I'm going the other. I think as a one-off, if you get the right conditions, you're going to get a result inside 4 days. When it's all on the line for one game, it probably, as Charu has suggested, going to be a more dramatic edge-of-the-seat contest than the chance of being able to come back over the space of 3 games.
From the BBC World Service, this is Stumped on All India Radio.
Let's bring in a former international captain who was at the Hampshire Bowl for the final, and that is Sri Lanka wicketkeeper bat, current president of the Marylebone Cricket Club, Kumar Sangakkara. Kumar, greetings. Welcome to Stumped.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, great to have you on. And hey, congratulations on your induction into the ICC Hall of Fame, because that happened during the course of the final as well. But we'll come to that. Yeah. What did you make of the match and the occasion of the World Test Championship final?
Well, I think the occasion was built up to quite nicely. Unfortunately, the weather threatened to be kind of a dampener on the whole, final in terms of getting a result, in terms of making the spectacle as enjoyable as it could be. But the reserve day was quite important in what turned out to be a thrilling and wonderful advertisement for Test cricket, especially for a format that was touted, quite a few years ago, abandoned, then restarted. Was very good for Test cricket and very good in terms of all the learnings they've had from this cycle, which hopefully they can take into the next one and make it even better.
I watched as you were officially inducted into the ICC Hall of Fame. Presentation was made during the match. I thought you looked quite emotional. Has this really meant a lot to you?
Yes, I mean, very satisfying and privileged, of course, to be invited and inducted into the Hall of Fame alongside some amazing, players from so many eras, and to get my cap from Sunil Gavaskar, a man of small stature physically, but a giant in terms of what he did as an opener in world cricket. Incredible, averaging over 50 first man to 10,000 runs. So it's great company to be in.
Kumar, hi, this is Charu Sharma from Bangalore. Always a pleasure
hi,
to
Charu,
speak to you.
how are
Thanks
you?
for joining us. Very well, thanks. And, my apologies from moving from test matches to white ball cricket, because this is all about the test. But anyway, moving on to the IPL, how have you found your transition from being a player to the director of cricket with a team that I'm actually pretty closely connected to? But that's a long story. Rajasthan Royals. How's the transition been?
Well, it's been interesting. Coming in a couple of weeks before the auction and the tournament really started, and settling in, trying to understand the dynamics in terms of personnel in the franchise, team members, and then the upheavals of injuries, unavailability, postponements, wins, losses. It's quite a complex scenario that you have to deal with. But I think, for Rajasthan, the real key is having a long-term philosophy and culture for the team without upheaval in terms of coaches changing every year or other key staff changing every year, because it becomes very difficult for them to establish a culture that is consistent. And therefore, it translates into usually inconsistent performances by individuals and the team, because they also are faced with a kind of a moving landscape that they can't really settle down to or trust. But for the short term, in terms of restarting at the end of September, I think it's more about just nailing down the philosophy that we want to establish at Rajasthan, the way we want to play our cricket, the brand of cricket that fits Rajasthan and the players that we have, and then really staying clinical and unemotional through the journey. Win or lose, it shouldn't really change the way you perceive your process, because if you've set it down with everyone's buy-in and you trust it, then you've just got to commit and keep trusting that process to deliver results. And that will take some time, but it's been fun. We've got a great ownership team. Andrew Strauss is on the board, Manoj Batale, the main owner. We got some good individuals, a great captain in Sanju Samson, a good coaching staff. So yeah, all to look forward to, Charu.
Yeah, I must mention, I just read about the investment, so that's, congratulations on that. But easier said than done about the emotional front, because each match seems to be like a volcano. If you win, great, and if you lose, it's crazy. But you mentioned about the resumption of the IPL. Let me quickly ask you, are you expecting all your overseas players to be available, or is it going to cause you even more upheaval now, the possibility of some of them not returning?
It'll probably cause even more upheaval. Never a dull day. We are very much English focused, or England player focused in over the last 3 years. So with the postponement, of course, clashes with other tour programs that England might have in place. Of course, they have Bangladesh and Pakistan coming up in September, October. Pakistan is very interesting because I was with MCC when we went on tour to Pakistan to encourage international cricket to go back, and it is a given that Australia and England need to tour Pakistan for that kind of international cricket to be finally stamped, saying yes, it's safe to go back to Pakistan and play, because a strong Pakistan, a strong West Indies, all the 12 test teams being strong is important for world cricket. And going back to the point you made a little while ago, Charu, about emotions, I think the example has to be set from the leadership group in terms of the coaches and the owners, in terms of us being calm and collected and trust in the process and trust in the people that we've put in place to do their jobs, to just do their jobs. And once that is seen by the players, then the example is very easy to follow for the players, and to keep calm and keep emotionally stable.
Congratulations on the induction to the ICC Hall of Fame. No one deserves it more. Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you so much. You're very kind.
Thanks so much. That's Kumar Sangakkara, former Sri Lanka captain. Well, that's all we've got time for on this week's Stumped here on All India Radio. Don't forget you can download and subscribe to our weekly podcast, and you can follow us on Twitter. We're at BBCWS Sport, and use the hashtag BBC Stumped. My thanks to Charu, Sharma and Jim Maxwell, and to you all for listening. Do stay safe, and we'll speak to you again next week. Bye-bye.
Continue to be careful.
Take care as you go.
Stumped is a BBC sport production for the BBC World Service, in association with the Australian Broadcasting Corporation and All India Radio.